The beginning of COVID was a really scary time in prison because that was back when nobody knew what to expect. We just heard about this mystery flu across the world that was shutting down cities. And we were in a place with locked doors and staff that was mostly there for the paycheck, so there was always a fear that something terrible would happen, we'd be locked there to slowly starve. So as soon as we heard about COVID spreading, I maxed out on soups every time we went to the store and ended up with hundreds in my locker. Then the first case hit the West Coast, and then New York, and that Saturday my grandfather was coming to see me, but Friday they put out a memo in the middle of the day that said all visitation is canceled indefinitely. Then they shut down schools and programs, so we were just sitting in the cells or going out to the rec yard, but not really mixing with everybody. Then I was looking out my window in the honor pod one day, and all I could hear was carts being pushed down the boulevard. And I looked out and saw nurses in full hazmat gear and guys pushing their carts down to the hole where they were going to be quarantined. And that was the first case, so we figured it would give us an idea of what to expect. But over the next month, 4 guys died. And over that time, we were just locked in our cells. We would come out 2 or 3 times a week and get a shower and then have to run right back in. Then I was sitting in the cell and looked out my window and I saw all these people come in hazmat suits with rebreathers like from the movie Outbreak. Turns out it was a National Guard unit that was sent there to do testing because they had been trained in hazmat procedure. So they pulled us out of the cells one by one and shoved that swab up our nose and tried to joke and make it kind of friendly, but it was so weird to talk to somebody in a rebreather unit. And we didn't lose anybody after that first wave, so they slowly started opening things up, letting us out in the pod instead of just ourselves, but they still didn't have commissary and we still didn't go to the chow hall. And because all the labor in a prison is done by the people that live there, everything was shut down, from the kitchen to the trash to maintenance to the wood shop. That meant staff was having to prepare meals and carry trash and do everything, and they were exhausted and frustrated and just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So the COVID money was spent to buy us hot dogs, gummy bears, and eclairs. Almost every day we had the same thing, 2 meals out of the day. The staff would just take it like an assembly line, pack it up, and then take it to the pods. And finally, they started letting us go outside again, but only in our individual unit. So we wouldn't be able to rec with anybody else, and it might take 2 or 3 days for us to get an hour outside. And then because I'd been teaching classes before COVID, I was tapped to make videos that would be played statewide. So I was called to a classroom where the head psychologist recorded me on her phone. She then uploaded those files, burned them on DVDs, and sent them out to all the prisons in the state. So after that, guys would say, "Hey, are you the Spanish guy?" Then when it seemed like everything was calmed down, they went in to do a safety inspection and realized that the ventilation had been inadequate for years, but because of the renewed interest behind COVID, all of a sudden they were threatening with fines and shutting the prison down. So they made a list of 64 people, and I wasn't on that original list, but when somebody had a medical emergency and they had to replace him, my name was picked out of a hat to be sent from the single-cell honor pod that had taken me 12 years to get into, down to a level 2 that was an open dormitory. So it went from COVID in a place where I could at least lock my door and be away from everybody to being in an open room with 81 other people with open showers and open toilets. And that was by far the hardest time I've ever done.